everyone. So in the last of these talks, I've been trying to give a technique each week for being a brahmachari, but this week, this whole chapter is on techniques. There's 33 of them, so I see no need to give one more technique. We'll just tune into these 33 techniques. I don't know how far we'll get in the time this evening, but we'll see. So the first technique is that if you see something in the marketplace that you want to buy for yourself, the whole spiritual path is overcoming desires. And yet sometimes we see something and we have a desire for it and we think that you try to take it and just say, oh, it's okay, I don't really need that thing, or just leave it, just keep walking. But somehow it goes on in your mind, oh, if I just had that thing, it would be so nice. And so the first technique that Swamiji's given us in this chapter is to go ahead, buy the thing, and possess it for just a little while, and then give it away to someone else. That it seems on the spiritual path, really, that so many good things that come to us, it's the spiritual path, even renunciation, isn't about just turning away from everything and saying, oh, I want nothing to come into my life, because there are many good things in there that should come into our life. But then we don't want the ego to take hold and say, this thing is mine, and now that I have it, I'll be happy forever, because we know that's not true. But we can allow good things to come into our lives, and then, like a river, let them flow through us, and we can become a channel for those things and pass them on to others. In an esoteric sense, it's why at the end of meditation that we say the healing prayers and that we send light and love and peace to others, because even in meditation we can think, oh, I've achieved this great state of peace, now I'm a great yogi, and think now it's mine forever. And if we have that idea that it will slip away from us, but if we have the idea that we will become a channel, then we can, whatever state we feel in meditation, channel that to others. And in that way, then we know that peace is always ours, because it's within us and we can access it whenever we want. That really, it was never ours anyways, that everything is God's. But we know that, well, we're still bound by this ego, that we can access it whenever we want. Now, the final thing to be said on this purchasing something for somebody else is, if you actually try this technique, that you can think, okay, I'll buy this thing, and then you really have to watch your mind, because your mind might start to play with you. Well, maybe I really don't need to give it away to that person, or they already have 2 of them anyways, or what would they do with 3, or maybe I'll just enjoy it a little bit longer for myself, and when the right person comes, then I'll give it away to that person. And really the mind is where the battlefield is on the spiritual path. So if we decide to take up this technique number 1 and buy something for someone else, then we should be firm in our resolution and be clear in our minds that yes, have the certain person that you'll give it to, have the time frame that you'll give it to that person clearly in your mind, and then do that, and don't be wishy-washy with it. So the next technique talks about, let's say there's a situation where you've done something well, and yet no one gives you credit for it. No one says, oh, what a wonderful job you've done building that thing, or whatever, taking responsibility for this program, or what a wonderful job you've done teaching this person that. And you think, oh, wow, I dedicated a year of my life to this thing, or whatever, and nobody even said one word. Maybe, perhaps that I should say something about it, but technique number 2 says no. Don't try to call attention back to yourself and try to tell others of the wonderful things that you've done. If nobody gives you credit for whatever this project is that you've done or whatever, just simply ignore it, just let it go. Because the deal is that God has been the one who has done that thing through you. And this is the path of self-realization, that we are trying to remember, we are trying to realize, we are trying to take it deeper and deeper into the depths of our being, that it's God who's doing everything. So even if we did the most amazing project in the world, that we have to remember while we're doing it, after we've done it, that it was God who did that project the whole time, and that it's His play, that it's His show, and that we should be grateful to God for Him giving us the chance to do that project, for us whatever lessons we needed to learn from it, that we got the chance to learn those lessons, and that's that. Speaking of that, something that's been on my mind lately is there's so much suffering in the world, and yet the saints tell us when we reach the end that we'll be so grateful for it, that every single thing that we've ever seen as suffering, we'll thank God for it. Thank you. Because it's suffering that makes us think, oh, there must be more in life. Or how can I do better? How can I get away from this suffering? How can I have more joy? And so it's a prod that pushes us to find God, pushes us to find that joy on the inside that no one can ever take away from us. I love Ananda Moy Ma in that chapter about her in Autobiography of a Yogi, that either she calls it or Master calls it her portable paradise, where she can just go within in meditation, and that paradise is always there, and no matter where she goes, she can always access it. What a joy that would be. And it will be when we all get there, and we will all get there. Now, technique number 3. And so this again is if people are giving you praise for anything, that you don't want to accept that deeply in your heart and say, yeah, I did do a pretty good job of that. They're right, because again, it will build your ego. At the same time, Swamiji says in this technique, not to just say to the people also, oh, it was nothing, forget it, don't say anything about it, because they're trying to be kind and nice to you and saying that some nice thing was done through you. And to say that it was just nothing would mean to say that they have bad taste, or to say that that thing wasn't good when in fact that thing was good. So it's fine to say, oh, thank you, or in some way acknowledge their kindness and acknowledge that a good thing was done, but don't acknowledge the ego within you. Don't acknowledge so much the part of you that wants to say, yes, it was I that did it. Try to just push that part to the side in whatever way you can and acknowledge that the good thing was done. But don't give yourself too much credit for it. Then, speaking of credit, number 4 is what if somebody else gets credit for something that you did? Perhaps you did a good project and someone else in the last moment sneaks in and puts the cherry on the top, as they say of the ice cream sundaes in America, that just the final finishing touches. And then perhaps they come in and say, hey, well, look, I've done, such a good job at this thing. And inwardly you're thinking, well, I'm the one who slogged away at this, for 9 months. This person comes in, says one word, and suddenly gets credit for the whole thing. Well, if you think of all of the incarnations that you've lived, perhaps millions of them, and all of the different projects you've done, and if you think that in the end it all adds up to 0 anyways, all of the successes, all of the failures, then you can simply just let it go and say, yeah, what a good job you did at that project. And let others know, well, what a good job that person did. In fact, all the people that I respect in this world, I try to respect everyone as a soul, but let's face it, some people are more evolved than others. And those who are highly evolved, it seems they're never, whatever projects they do, anyone that's helped them, they say, oh, yes, this person did the project. And they never say, I did this project with the help of so-and-so. That they're constantly trying to give others the credit anyways. And in that way, we become free from ego. And speaking of giving others the credit, takes me right into the 5th technique, which is, what if you have a good idea? Maybe the idea is, I don't know, we should plant tomatoes over there in that patch, and then we all will be able to enjoy the tomatoes. That land's not being used anyways. And then perhaps someone else comes in and says, we should plant tomatoes. Now there's 2 ways that this can happen. That in the first way, you could be telling your friend Bob, we should plant tomatoes. And then Susie over there overhears and runs and tells somebody else, the boss of the community, we should plant tomatoes. And the boss in the community meeting says, Susie, that was such a wonderful idea. We'll plant tomatoes. And you're thinking, she stole my idea. I was telling my friend, she overheard and it was my idea. And as soon as that thought even comes in, even if you don't express it outwardly, you see the thing is, it's not your idea. That all thoughts are universally not individually rooted. You were just being a channel for that thought, that God was giving that thought through you in that moment. But when the ego grabs on and says, this was my thought, not yours, I had it first, I should get the credit for this, well then, it's not going to help us with the only one thing that we're trying to do, the only one thing our soul has been trying to do, incarnation after incarnation, which is get free of the ego. So even if someone overhears your idea and steals it and gets all the credit and the whole thing goes on wonderfully because of that one idea, you will benefit spiritually if you can just say nothing about it and just think that God's the one doing all of this. God's the one giving all the different ideas and giving different people credit at different times. The idea that it all adds up to zero is so important. In some incarnation, you'll be a movie star, but it's just temporary. And in some incarnation, you'll just be a nobody that nobody knows. And you'll get a chance to do it all. But to think that it's so important that it's your right at this moment, that's where the trouble comes in. But if you just relax, say, Master, you want me to be this? All right. You want me to be that? All right. And know seriously that it doesn't matter. Then that's when you're really progressing spiritually, and that's when you have the inner joy. Now, I said there was two ways that this could happen. The other way that it could happen is that Susie doesn't overhear you, that, you're in the community meeting and you're about to express your idea about tomatoes, and Susie raises her hand first and says, we should plant tomatoes, and that you never told anyone. There was no way she heard. It was just that the idea, she happened to raise her hand first. And again, it's because ideas are universally and not individually rooted. And as you deeply, perhaps move into a spiritual family, a spiritual community, that you'll realize that many people can be channeling that same idea whenever there's a good idea. Even if you're not in a spiritual community, many different inventors have just reached a patent office 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 day, whatever, too late, and the other guy got the idea first and gets all the fame and the money and all that. But you see, what God is doing is he's putting these ideas into the planet because he needs that particular invention or that particular tomato or whatever it is to be happening at that particular time. And we are just channels. And so it very easily can happen that that idea comes in and somebody else gets all the glory. But don't worry about the glory. Don't even worry, it was my idea. Because they're all God's ideas. And when you see it that way, then you're free. The next, number 6, if someone scolds you for something that you didn't do, perhaps that you could say, I wasn't the one. I didn't do that. Or perhaps you could just say, sorry that it happened. Then you're not saying, I didn't do it, or I did do it. Sorry that it happened. And the person might think, good, I showed him. He won't do that again next time. I know what's right and what's wrong. But Swamiji says here that you'll benefit much spiritually if you just don't stand up for yourself. Don't defend yourself. And it's fascinating because part of you wants to say, but I didn't do it, and there's right and there's wrong, and we should show that, that I wasn't the one who did it, and I know that it was whoever that did it, and he should be the one who gets yelled at and gets scolded. Now, this is an important thing, because perhaps something, very, very serious is at stake, and, you're going to go to jail for 40 years and not be able to feed your family. Well, fine. Then you shouldn't just, let it go by. But perhaps if it's something that's just minor, that's more of a blow to the ego, or maybe a few people now think you're the worst person or whatever, you can just let it go. It doesn't matter what people think about you anyways. Swamiji tells us that most of the people are wrong most of the time anyways. And when you look around at the confusion and chaos in this world, that most people are guided by their whims and their fancies. They're not guided by truth. And they're just guided by gossip. And, what did he say? Did you hear he said that? But they don't really know what's going on. And so it doesn't matter in the end what most people think about us. But all that really matters is what does God think about us. And at the end of the day, it's God who judges us. And even that, he doesn't judge us when you really get to know God. That's a lower manifestation of God and a lower understanding of God. God doesn't judge us. God simply loves us, and it's we who judge ourselves. And yes, we have to have a conscience, and we have to know what's right and what's wrong. But at the same time, we don't have to be too stern with ourselves. Ultimately, in trying to love God, we're trying to learn to love ourselves and to be gentle with ourselves, not to do the wrong things, but whenever we make a mistake, we can also let that go. Anyways, the point of this one was, if someone scolds you for something you didn't do, don't let the ego jump in there. Push the ego to the side and just let it be, and that it's all right. Number 7, if you see others eager to air their views, let them do it. I was studying a little bit for this talk this afternoon, and I was at lunch, and I was just watching all the different various lunch tables and watching my lunch table and just thinking that we get so caught in ego, and then we think whatever the conversation is at the lunch table or whatever, at the important dinner that we go to, that the conversation is so important, and we think we know so much about that topic, and even in a sense of wanting to help people, that we'll, oh, let me tell you that this is the way to do it, or I know this or that. And so Swamiji says here that in the conversation, it's continually, forever and ever going on, and as we grow on the spiritual path, we just think, God, is there silence? I just want silence on the outside. I just want silence on the inside. Sometimes it's a good practice to not join the lunch table and just be off on your own and eat in silence and give God everything, every bite in silence to God, and you'll grow spiritually that way. But sometimes it's right to be at the lunch table and be a beacon of joy, but you can be that even quietly. And simply be there and just watch the conversation and watch other people and watch, and you'll notice that some people are very eager to dominate the conversation, to show that they know everything about that particular topic, even though if you listen sensitively, you might notice they don't know anything about that topic. And then others, maybe they do know something about the topic, but they'll quietly wait if others want to hear them, and then they'll share whatever little bit they know about that, and then they'll go on. And in conversation also, make sure that you're not drawing attention to yourself and showing, oh, I know so much about this, that you're simply just talking about the topic and trying to be helpful, whatever it is, and in conversation, trying to uplift the energy of the conversation and uplift the energy of others. I've met some conversationalists who sometimes will just drop in the most random thing into the conversation, and it's like a bomb in the middle of it, and you think, where did that come from? But what they're doing is trying to uplift everyone, and you see that everyone laughs, and the conversation that was going towards, the death penalty and murderers and robbers is now laughing back again and going towards the flowers and rainbows and whatever, joy. And so that's something that we can do. But more than don't push yourself in other conversations, also I want to urge everyone to simply watch conversations and watch other people. And in that way you can grow of what part do I play in this? And one of the next things is, don't think about what part do you play in this, because we're not supposed to think too much of that. But if we do have to be here, then we want to be channels for upliftment. And ultimately, we want to be watching this ego and not letting him just come in and go on and on and on. And we don't even realize that we're in ego at that point, when the ego is just going on and on and on. But if we can withdraw from it, and if we can feel, ooh, maybe I know the most about this topic, but I'm not even going to say anything because who am I anyways? What does it really matter? Then we're free from the most important thing, which is not the conversation at the lunch table, but we're free from ego. So now, number 8, if others try to boss you around and it really doesn't matter to you one way or the other, why not go with the game? Wow, each one of these is really amazing, and we really should take each one of these deeply. We should study them and then put a few into practice and try and study more and more of them and put more of them into practice. But maybe it's just me. I don't know. But this seems hard. And if someone comes and they're like, you know, I don't know, maybe they just show up or something, and now they're like, you know, I know all about this, and you go do this, and you go do that. And you might be thinking, well, actually, I know all about this, and as one of the other things was, this is my project or whatever. But if you can really just say, oh, all right, let's do it your way. Let's try it. Hey, why not? Wow. Then we're going to be free from the biggest thing of all, Mr. Ego. And that's a higher thing. And it's so hard in the moment to think, now, I have a choice. I can be right, or I could be happy. I could be free from ego. Am I going to push myself in this situation and say, you're not the boss of me, who do you think you are? Or am I just going to, Swami says he would make a game of it. See how much this guy can be the craziest boss ever. And you can just be like, yeah, okay, boss, we'll do it your way. Boy, that's a real sense of freedom. When you can just make a game out of it and just feel that, okay, you're the boss, you're the boss. And again, it's about having that bigger perspective where we can just see that we've lived so many lifetimes. One incarnation, I'll be the boss. Next incarnation, I'll be the boss. In the end, does it matter at all? No. And all that matters is that we're happy. So that's a fun game. And let's try to see all of life as a game. What a joy that is then. We can just see God acting through each one of these egos, but that it all doesn't matter in the end, that we're none of it. Number 9, don't constantly try to explain or define who you are. This is such an important point also, because we get into our minds that, oh, I'm this, and that this person misunderstood me. He doesn't understand that really I'm a caring person, or he doesn't understand really that, you know, I am, 95% of the time go to meditation, or he doesn't understand that I do this or that I do that, and I really should just go tell him so that he gets a clear view of who I am. That we don't have to do that. Let's just let people, again, think whatever they want to think. And because probably we're going to be justifying ourselves in the good, oh, my ego, I'm this, I'm that. But the real deal is we are not the ego. That even if we are the best meditator, or normally we don't move in meditation, but today we were just, that it doesn't matter, that we're not that, we're none of it. Even if we are the best scientist, or even if we are, I don't know, the world's best chess champion or whatever, these are all self-definitions. And the more we place these on ourselves, I'm good at chess, I'm American, I'm this, I'm that, I'm smart, I'm stupid. Whether they're good definitions or whether they're bad definitions, I'm lazy, I'm this, I'm that, they're definitions. And so we already got these going on mentally, 24/7, going on, I'm this, I'm that. And the game of meditation, of self-realization, is to stop that, to become aware of the mind that's constantly saying, I'm this, I'm that, I always do this, I never do that. And it's just to be there and watch those thoughts and really learn how to control them. This is a little off track, but I'm just so amazed by it, I can't help it, that I decided to use affirmations one time. And now I used to not make my bed at all. I just thought, what does it matter? I'm a monk, I live alone, nobody comes in my room, what does it matter? And then slowly, as my soul evolved, I thought, well, it's nice to have a sattvic environment. And the more little things that I do in the environment that I live in, even if I don't spend much time in here, it's nice. So waking up in the morning, I got this affirmation. It said, Swamiji tells us that the best time to practice an affirmation is when you're going into your subconscious mind. So as you're waking up, you're in your subconscious mind, or as you're falling asleep. So for about 3 days, as I would wake up, that's the craziest self-definition ever. As I would wake up, I would say, I'm a bed maker, I'm a bed maker, I'm a bed maker. And I just put it deep into my subconscious. And this is the scary part. I only did it for 3 days. And now for years, I wake up and I don't even think about it. And it scared me how much, if we really dive into our subconscious and put a habit in there and put a self-definition, and that's a silly one, I'm a bed maker. I mean, what kind of self-definition is that? And yet it worked. And for years now, It's just a habit, and it just goes. But so the good part is, okay, we can change our habits like that. But then the bad part is, oh my God, what about when we wake up and we think, I'm lazy, I don't want to get up, and we think that over and over for years, or whatever the case may be. And so the deal here is that we're trying to watch these thoughts and become very aware of them. We want to use every trick that those who have gone before us have given us in order to overcome all of these, and watch these. But then that's what's going on in the mind. And then this technique that we're talking about here today is, don't take it to the next level and start going out and telling people that I'm like this or I'm like that, and because it just makes it even worse then. And one more thing, and we need to move on here, but Master said, if you have a fault, don't tell anyone. That he said you can tell people that are very spiritually advanced, because they're not going to then keep repeating that. But you see, it puts that thought form in the ether even more. And if you have 10 people mentally around you thinking, that guy is lazy, then you're going to have a real hard time getting rid of it. But if you tell someone who's not going to gossip, and they're going to mentally pray and send you energy and help you out of that, fine. You have to be very discriminating in who you tell these things to. So now, let's go to the last one, and that is number 10 here. Never place yourself mentally in competition with others. It's so easy in the mind to get in competition with others. And this goes deep. Let me just tell you that, I used to wonder, why does warfare carry on even into Treta Yuga? Okay, I get that in Kali Yuga, we're not that mentally evolved. We're throwing rocks at each other and thinking this is my little kingdom and I'm going to fight you for it. Okay, we're not that evolved. But then as Dwapara goes on and we advance, it seems like that we should get out of war, but we don't. The ego's still advancing and evolving, and war still goes on. But then you think, my God, by the time we get all the way to Treta Yuga, and that, telepathy is widespread, and that definitely life is going to be more beautiful and more advanced, but still there's wars that go on. The highest understanding of that is that wars will go on within you mentally until you achieve Satya Yuga within yourself, until there is no more mental war within yourself. And so we have to get to a point on the inside where we are not in competition with each other, obviously outwardly, that we're building all of these communities all around the world to learn how to cooperate with one another, but that we don't want to be in competition with one another outwardly, but then even it's so important on the inside, mentally, thinking that, that guy, bring it back to the beginning of this, that guy might have planted 50 tomato plants today, but I planted 51 and I'm the better tomato planter. And again, it's a silly self-definition, but in the end, they're all silly self-definitions. And we never want to place ourselves in competition with each other, because at the end of the day, we are one. And that all of this, it's all just mirrors. If you see someone you don't like, something you don't like within yourself. You see something good within somebody, it's because you have that goodness within yourself, and that they're just a reflection of it. And so take that thought deeply. It takes time. I don't have time to go into it tonight. But whatever goodness, whatever kindness that you're putting out, that the world is a reflection of that, and you'll magnetically attract that to yourself. So even hold kind thoughts to others, radiate those kind thoughts to others, radiate love to everyone, and then you will live in your own inner harmony and your own inner peace, and then you'll start to see that in the world around you, and that's the state we want to live in. And this is what will happen if we renounce the ego, and then if we use these techniques to transcend the ego and ultimately make it into that state where we realize and where we know in the depths of our being that we are all one. Joy to you.